The torches lining the ramp of the red keep guttered in the afternoon breeze, their flames bowing eastward like supplicants in a single-minded prayer. Sansa Stark paused, a heartbeat beneath the stone arch that framed the path to the inner yard, fingers tightening on the embroidered sleeve of her gown until raw silk whispered against skin. She felt the city's clamorous heart vibrating through the sandstone beneath her slippers. Smiths' hammers, gulls crying at the distant docks, the unbroken roar of 10,000 small folk awaiting a glimpse of royal finery. Every sound blurred into one rising surge, a tide of expectation that threatened to drown her careful composure. She had been trained from the cradle to glide through courts like a swan across an autumn lake. Yet today, as she drew breath perfumed by lemon cakes cooling somewhere unseen, as harpists tested silver strings beyond the garden walls, she tasted only iron at the back of her throat. Inside her, two rivers of memory converged, Winterfell's fresh-cut pine and King's Landing's acrid smoke, mingling until both were rendered strange. She touched the silver wolf's head clasp at her throat, a token pilfered from her childhood wardrobes and hidden away ever since the day her father lost his head. Even now the metal felt cold, as though mourning the cold north that birthed it. Down the ramp, Sir Dontos Hollard waited, purple-nosed and bleary-eyed. His once splendid motley was sun-faded and patched with mismatching cloth, the bells upon his cap mute. In the months of hushed exchanges and midnight conspirings, he had become her confessor, her herald of improbable hopes, safety across the sea, a ship called the Merling King, a life untouched by Lannister cruelty. Yet all of that shimmered like a child's tale told at twilight. Across the yard, lions prowled in gold and crimson, and the great doors to the throne room yawned wide to swallow Sansa whole. "Sweet lady," Dontos croaked as she neared. He bowed too deeply, nearly toppling before righting himself with a wheeze. "All is ready. All will be well, you'll see." She studied his face, the watery eyes, the sweat collecting in the creases beside his bulbous nose, and wondered whether he even believed the lies he whispered. Beneath the tavern stench lay something sharper, sourer, fear or remorse, perhaps both. "Tell me again," she said softly, forcing warmth into her voice. "Tell me how it will happen." Dontos' gaze darted towards a pair of gold cloaks stationed at the yard's edge before returning to her. "A gift, as we agreed. A hairnet fit for a queen. So pretty they'll scarce notice a gem or two missing when the revel ends." She cut him off with a slight shake of her head. She did not need the story recounted. She had memorized every step, rehearsed each gesture before her looking glass until the movements felt as natural as breathing. What she required was certainty, and no man could offer that. Only she could decide how much of her remaining innocence to barter for survival. Footsteps echoed from the stair behind her. A hush fell over the courtyard as Lord Tywin Lannister emerged, sword at hip, cloak of crimson velvet rippling like liquid fire. Around him clustered lesser lords and ladies in bright cloth and brighter jewels, each vying for proximity to power. Sansa lowered her eyes, the wolf head clasp suddenly heavy as a millstone. She yearned to thrust her chin high and meet Tywin's gaze with the proud ice of House Stark, but that was a mask for another life. Here she played a dutiful maiden, all deference and timid wonder. "My lady," he said, voice cool as a winter's dawn. "You may proceed." His grace grows impatient to see his betrothed upon the hour. "Man Swatien," his betrothed. The words settled like lead within her chest. Marguerite Tyrell was to stand beside King Joffrey when the Septe bells rang. Sansa, relegated to a place among noble guests, would watch the ceremony unfold, as though from beyond a pane of colored glass, close enough to feel the heat of the flames, yet forbidden to burn. She flexed her fingers, recalling the fragile lattice of silver filaments and amethysts now nesting among her copper curls. Each bead concealed a single, dark-skinned seed. "The Strangler," Dontos whispered. Potent as sorcery, silent as a sigh. One squeeze. That was all. One casual flick of slender fingers, as though brushing away lint, and a single stone would tumble free. It would land unseen within the brim of Joffrey's chalice as she offered him a toast. The purple crystal would melt upon wine, leaving no trace but a swirl of deeper hue. A gift befitting a bride's cousin, the fool had jested. A king's mouth would foam, his throat would clench, and the world would hold its breath. Sansa pressed gloved fingertips to her temple, as though steadying a crown that was not there. She had imagined the moment 100 times, each vision more vivid than the last. Joffrey's eyes bulging like rotten grapes, the startled screech of the Queen Mother, lords and ladies scattering, the High Septon's prayers lost beneath the uproar. Yet in none of those dreams did she see her own reflection afterward. Would she weep? Would she laugh? Or would she crumble into 1,000 glittering shards, the girl she had been sundered forever from the woman who arranged a king's death? A herald's horn sounded thrice, its notes soaring above the cacophony. The gates to the royal sept lay open, revealing a carpet of red strewn with pale winter roses. Down that path, she and the other noble maidens would process, flanking the Tyrell bride in radiant splendor. Sansa inhaled, tasting roses, ashes, lemon cakes, blood. Her stomach coiled. "Lady Sansa." Margaery's sweet voice called behind her, light as a lark's. Sansa turned to see the girl queen-to-be gliding forward, cheeks flushed with what others might mistake for happiness. But Sansa glimpsed the too quick beat of her pulse at the base of her throat, the faint sheen along her brow. Margaery Tyrell was no naive blossom. She sensed storms on the horizon. "You look lovely," Sansa managed, letting her lips curve. The praise was genuine. Margaery's gown, a marvel of silk petals and flowing sleeves, shimmered green and gold in the midday sun, as though woven from summer itself. Around her neck coiled a torque of rose-gold thorns, each tip set with a seed-pearl dew. "Ace do you," Margaery answered, and her eyes flicked almost imperceptibly to the glinting amethysts nestled in Sansa's hair. "A gift from Ser Don Tos, you said. He has excellent taste." The thrumming within Sansa quickened. Had Margaery deciphered the ruse? Or was she merely admiring craftsmanship? The moment passed as ladies-in-waiting gathered, adjusting veils and smoothing skirts. Music spilled from the sept, flutes and drums intertwining in a languid dance. The ceremony awaited. Inside the vaulted hall, candles burned in banks that painted the air with gold. Sansa took her place among the maidens, heart rattling like a bird in a wicker cage. The High Septon began intoning blessings over king and bride. Joffrey stood resplendent in crimson doublets sewn with black sapphires, crown perched atop golden curls, smugness oozing from every pore. His eyes found Sansa's only once, sliding over her as a hawk might note a field mouse. Alive, yes, but small enough to devour without thought. She lowered her gaze. Beneath heavy lashes, she tracked the chalice awaiting its first ceremonial pour. It gleamed on a pedestal near the base of the altar, rubies crusting its stem like cochineal insects. Soon it would travel from hand to hand, gathering sips of wine and blessings alike. Soon it would reach her. As the vows unfolded, Sansa catalogued the details that would anchor this day in memory. The crackle of pitch-soaked torches, the faint must of old incense trapped in tapestries, the way Joffrey's voice cracked briefly when he spoke the words, "Until the end of my days," and the Queen Mother's quick smile smoothed the fissure. All of it might vanish in the hour to come. Chaos had a hunger for devouring minutiae. She stowed them anyway, talismans against the tide. At last, with the Septon's benediction complete, servants bore forth honeyed wine and silver ewers. The chalice passed first to the king. Joffrey lifted it in florid salute, his amusement at the crowd's adoration evident. He took a swallow, smacked his lips, and beckoned Margaery to drink. She complied with a tranquility Sansa envied, though the faintest tremor rippled her wrist. The goblet traveled to Lord Tyrell, to Queen Cersei, to Lord Tywin. Each sip left behind a ring of damp rubies on polished gold. When at last the cup crossed into Sansa's possession, the world narrowed to the tremble of her heartbeat. She accepted it with both hands, bowing as courtesy commanded. Wine sloshed, catching candlelight like garnets in motion. "This is the hour. Do not falter." A breath in, a breath out, veil of composure drawn smooth. She lifted the cup, but instead of drinking, she turned to the king and curtsied low. "May your Gracie's reign be long and just," she said, words ringing clear. In that instant, her fingers brushed the net at her temple. One amethyst loosened, a star slipping from its constellation. It tumbled, kissed the rim with the faintest click, and vanished among the dark waves of liquid. A mere grain, Dantos had sworn, yet potent enough to still a man's heart. Silence his tongue, potent enough to redraw the map of power in Westeros. The chalice weighted her palms like fate itself. She handed it to Joffrey. He grinned, predatory, careless, and threw back the dregs in a gulp. Crimson ran across his lips like war paint. Applause filled the septi. Sansa's vision blurred at the edges. Air seemed thinner, each candle's flame bending toward some unseen chasm. Nothing happened. Moments trickled by, measured in the scrape of boot soles, the rustle of brocade. Joffrey's gaze swept over the assembled court, mild irritation clouding his expression, as though no one applauded quite loud enough. He wiped his mouth on the back of his sleeve, and then he coughed. A single, sharp bark of sound, echoing off carved pillars. It drew puzzled glances, but no alarm. Until he coughed again. Harder, body doubling, one hand clawing at the ruby-encrusted throne behind him. His mother stepped forward, voice taut, but the words drowned beneath her son's ragged hacking. The hall's hush fractured. Whispers bred whispers. Sansa's breath froze. A fragile globe of glass suspended in her chest. She watched Joffrey's cheeks flush scarlet, watched his eyes bulge. He opened his mouth as though to curse, yet produced only a wet rattle. Foam, pale, tinged with pink, bubbled at the corner of his lips. The queen shrieked his name. Margaery stumbled backward, gown sweeping an arc of petals upon the floor. Knights surged forward like drawn blades. Somewhere, the high septon intoned a prayer to the Mother of Mercy, voice quavering. Sansa did not move. She felt the moment stretch into a vast crystalline corridor, each second, a door slamming shut behind her. There could be no return to the girl who dreamed of lemon cakes and gallant knights. That girl had cast her stone into the abyss and watched it sink. Yet amid the uproar, another truth emerged. A cold, glacial calm. Joffrey Baratheon gasped and wheezed and clawed the air, and she felt nothing. No triumph, no sorrow, only an emptiness, vast as the winter sea. Perhaps it was shock. Perhaps it was the final shard of innocence breaking free. Guards were shouting for a maester. Lords jostled like cattle, some attempting to press closer for a better view of the king's convulsions, others recoiling from the unseen plague. Joffrey collapsed to his knees, fingers gouging grooves in the stone. His crown tipped, slid along his brow, and toppled with a metallic chime lost beneath the clamor. "Water!" Cersei screamed, frantic. She grabbed a carafe from a frightened servant and splashed its contents across her son's face, as though dousing fire. Joffrey spasmed, back arching. His tongue lolled, blackening at the edges. Sansa's knuckles whitened upon her skirts. Move. Move now. But her limbs obeyed some other law, rooted to marble, etched with 7-pointed stars. If she fled, suspicion would follow like a hound. If she lingered, what mask could hide the echo of her silent confession? "This is your moment, child." Ser Dantos appeared at her side, voice a ragged whisper, barely audible above the din. His hand, trembling, closed around her elbow. "We must away, before the lions bare their claws." The courtyard outside the sept erupted in shouts as word spread. King Joffrey stricken, choking on his own breath. Sansa felt herself guided through swirling eddies of bodies, past sobbing smallfolk, past lords of flame with rumor. The sky overhead had deepened to a sorrowful gold. Late afternoon shadows, stretching like grasping fingers. Bells began to ring, first one, then another, their tones overlapping in discordant alarm. Behind her the great doors slammed, sealing the scene of horror within. Ahead lay the garden maze where roses climbed trellis walls, and peacocks strutted unheeding. Only there, in a hushed alcove between hedges, did Dantos finally release her arm. "Sweetling, sweetling," he panted. "Seven save us all. You did it. Gods be good, you truly." She rounded on him, words slicing sharper than Valyrian steel. Quiet. We are not beyond reach yet. Somewhere in the palace, feet thundered upon stone. The Kingsguard would be searching for culprits, for accomplices, for shadows that did not belong. The poison's path would be traced through the wine, through the goblet, through every hand that had touched it, hers among them. "Your ship," Sansa said, voice brittle. "Where is your ship?" Danto swallowed, pale. "Ate to Blackwater Rush as ever. But the river is watched, and the mudgate will soon be barred. The city's claws close fast. Then we must fly faster." She surprised herself with the steel in her tone. Not a plea, but a command. The fool straightened, as though the wine-soaked motley were a knight's enameled breastplate. "This way." He beckoned, leading her down a gravel path beneath arching boughs heavy with dusky blooms. Sansa followed, the wolf clasp at her throat beating time with her pulse. Each step carried her deeper into a night thick with possibilities, most dark, some darker still. They emerged onto a narrow servants' lane skirting the outer wall. Stable smoke mingled with the reek of rush-strewn kennels. Dantos muttered greetings to passing grooms, his voice adopting the easy slur of a drunkard seeking hearth and ale, nothing more. Sansa kept her head bowed, the hairnet concealed beneath the hood of her cloak. Another gift, coarse wool dyed plain brown. Yet beneath the drabness lay steel-edged resolve. Beyond the western gate, they commandeered a mule cart piled high with sacks of barley. The driver, a pock-marked youth scarcely older than Bran, recognized the crest upon Danto's tarnished cloak and acquiesced. Sansa climbed amid the sacks, heart lurching as the cart jolted forward. The sun sagged toward the horizon, staining clouds the color of old bruises. Ahead, the river gleamed. But before they could reach its banks, a trumpet blast split the air. On the road behind, a mounted patrol of gold cloaks spurred their horses, cloaks streaming. The cart lurched as Dantos whipped the mule into a shambling trot. "Hold tight, sweet lady," he cried, voice shaking. "They're hunting anyone who left the feast." Sansa's fingers dug into burlap. Dust plumed, stinging her eyes. She risked a glance backward. 6 riders, helms bright, chain hauberks clinking like chimes of doom. One pointed, another shouted. Time compressed. She tasted the strangler again upon her tongue, though she had not drunk. Her lungs blazed, demanding breath. Faster, faster. The mule brayed, hooves clattering. Sacks tumbled, grain spilling like golden rain. The first arrow hissed past, embedding in a fence post. The second splintered the cart's sideboard. Dantos cursed, hauling the reins. The mule veered onto a rutted path between orchards, branches whipping at Sansa's hood. Overhead, crows erupted in black clouds. A third arrow found flesh, not hers, but the mule's flank. The beast screamed, stumbled, and collapsed. The cart skewed, overturning. Sansa pitched forward, barley cascading around her like desert sand. Pain flared in her shoulder. She rolled, cloak tangling her arms, and came up gasping amid weeds. Boots thundered. The gold cloaks encircled the wreck, blades drawn. Dust settled upon polished steel. "Lady Sansa Stark," their captain intoned, visor lifting to reveal eyes hard as shut doors. "By order of Her Grace Queen Cersei Lannister, you are summoned to answer for the regicide of King Joffrey Baratheon." Regicide. The word struck like freezing water. Around her, barley grains glittered in the waning light, countless, unbound. She rose slowly, spine straight though her knees quivered. "I will come," she said, voice steady as snowmelt. "But not bound as a criminal. I am still a lady of Winterfell." The captain considered. At length he nodded to 2 men, who approached, shackles ready. Sansa extended her wrists. The iron was cold, familiar, so like the steel that held her father upon the steps of Baelor Sept. The memory should have shattered her. Instead it hardened something that had lain molten since the day Ned Stark died. As the patrol herded her toward King's Landing's looming walls, Sansa lifted her eyes to the blood-red sky. Above the battlements, banners strained against wind, their sigils snapping. Lions rampant, roses entwined, stags crowned. None, flew the dire wolf. Not yet. With every step, she rehearsed what came next. Accusations, glaring courtiers, her own heartbeat drumming war. She would stand before them, spine unbowed, and speak truths disguised as innocence. The poison's shadow would cling to her, but so would the memory of a king's last breath. Neither crown nor cage could strip that from her. She marched on, a quiet storm gathering in her breast. And somewhere beyond the river mouth, the Merling King waited, its sails furled like wings at rest. The night had just begun. Inari, Enilni. City walls loomed higher with every step, their ancient stones blotting out the last hemorrhage of sunset. The air inside the gates stank of tallow smoke, horse dung, and the raw terror of rumor. Sansa marched beneath flickering torchlight, wrists weighted by manacles that jangled against each other like the chatter of teeth in winter. The gold cloaks pressed close behind, spears angled outward to shove aside gawkers who surged along the street, hungry for any shred of spectacle. Above, shuttered windows cracked open, as candles winked alive, 1,000 watchful eyes peering through latticework. Word traveled on wings of panic. The boy king lay dead, purple-faced, an unholy stain upon the sept floor. Mothers clutched children closer. Men whispered wagers on which house would rise from the carcass of House Baratheon. No one dared speak the word war, but the syllables tremored beneath every breath. In the snarl of activity before the Red Keep's barbican, ranks of Lannister guards formed a scarlet barricade. Lanterns bobbed between them like tethered stars. As the procession approached, Captain Boros swung out a lantern, its circle of light washing over Sansa's face. Recognition sparked. Mouths twisted in derision, satisfaction, disbelief. She could not parse each expression quickly enough. Boros stepped forward, gripping her chin with a mailed fist. "Lady Stark," he said, as though tasting the title for rancidness. "The Queen mourns her son. Your comfort will be arranged in a cell." His gauntlet scraped her cheek before releasing. She lifted her chin to hide the sting, the heat of embarrassment flushing her ears. Guards parted, and Sansa passed beneath the portcullis into the massive belly of the keep, where laughter from the wedding feast had warped into anxious murmurs and the clatter of armor. Stairs plunged into the bowels of Maegor's holdfast. Here the torches gave way to oil lamps spitting acrid smoke. Water sweated down walls. Something skittered in the gloom. The corridor narrowed until it felt carved by claws. Finally they stopped at an iron door strapped with bands of black steel. A turnkey produced a ring of keys large enough to anchor a ship and work the lock. The door groaned inward. The cell smelled of straw gone sour. In one corner, a rotted bucket listed, half filled with some stagnant fluid. A lone sconce provided jaundiced light, its flame knitted from more shadow than glow. The turnkey shoved Sansa through and slammed the door. Bolts slid home with a butcher's relish. She remained upright by force of will alone, drawing slow breaths until the rush of fear slowed. Her shoulders ached, the silk gown torn at the hem, the wolf clasp pressing like ice against her collarbone. She uncurled her fists, surprised to see blood where her nails had broken skin. 5,000 miles of braided memory twined around her thoughts. Smiling Arya chasing cats. Ladies wore muzzle. Bran's laughter. She shut her eyes. Time lost meaning in darkness. How many heartbeats passed before the lock rattled again? She could not guess. The door opened. Torchlight poured through the gap, revealing a figure draped in black and gold. His steps deliberate as a cat's. Tyrion Lannister. He dismissed the turnkey, then leaned against the jamb, studying her with those mismatched green and black eyes. His face, still bruised from the battle of the Blackwater's ghosts, betrayed neither pity nor triumph. "So," he said after a pause, "it seems the royal wedding has proven eventful." Sansa met his gaze with what dignity confinement allowed. "You think I killed him?" Tyrion's brow furrowed. "What I think matters less than what others believe. The Queen, for one, has formed an opinion. She and Grand Maester Pycelle have discovered convincing proof of poison." He pulled a wineskin from his belt, uncorked it, and offered it between the bars. "Not Strangler, I promise. Merely summer wine. You look parched." Her wrist still bore iron, but she raised the skin, sipping and choking as the sweetness hit her raw throat. When she wiped her mouth, Tyrion was watching with a kind of weary kindness no courtier ever showed. "I know grief," he said. "Whatever monster Joffrey was, the manner of his end unsettles everyone, and unsettling times breed scapegoats. The small folk already call it the Purple Wedding." A humorless laugh threatened her composure. "Purple, like Strangler's stain, like amethyst." "I did not pour the wine," she whispered. "No." Ser Dontos claims he saw Cersei herself hand the cup to the boy. Tyrion's smile curved like a blade. "Yet they also whisper my name in dark corners. Husband of the accused, cupbearer of dubious stature. Some will say we conspired together." "Dan." Sansa's pulse quickened. "Did we? Wedded though we are, my lady, you and I share neither secrets nor bed. Hard to hatch plots in such distance." He sighed. "Still, appearances. What will they do to me?" Tyrion leaned closer, voice dropping. "The Queen wants a confession before the sun sets again. Failing that, a trial. She has commanded Pycelle to scour the city for herbs matching those found in the goblet. If they convict you of kingslaying—" He left the rest unspoken. Heads upon spikes required no explanation. A tremor trembled in her, yet amid a shard of defiance flared. "I will not confess to a crime I did not commit." Tyrion studied her face. "Then gird yourself. High treason trials are rarely tethered to truth." He fished a small iron key from his purse. "First, comfort." He unlocked her shackles. The weight fell away, and blood rushed into her hands, tingling. Tears pricked unbidden, humiliating. Tyrion pretended not to notice. "Someone must speak for you," he said. "Your house has few friends here. My own loyalty, well, even lions may be devoured by their pride. But know this, I will not see you silenced for crimes you did not choose." His gaze lingered. "Did you choose them, Sansa?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Confession warred with caution. Finally, she shook her head. "No." A flicker of something. Relief. Disappointment. Crossed his features, too swift to name. He donned his mask of sardonic dwarf once more, and bowed. "Then perhaps there remains a road through this mire." He replaced her shackles loosely. "Do not lose hope." When he left, darkness folded over her like water. She sank against the damp stone, knees tucked beneath her, and let herself weep. Not for Joffrey, but for every sunlit corridor of Winterfell that would never again know her footsteps. Hurrah! Dawn arrived like a blade. A jailer roused her with kicks to the soles of her feet. "Up, wolf girl. The Queen awaits." They marched her through corridors already humming with soldiers and servants. Word of Joffrey's death infected the castle. Every whispered conversation paused as she passed, resuming in frenzied hiss. At the base of the Tower of the Hand, they thrust her into a modest antechamber. Queen Cersei stood before a lavabo, white morning gown clinging to her like frost. Her eyes, rimmed red, glinted harder than rubies. "Leave us," she commanded the guards. The door shut with a hollow boom. Cersei advanced until they were arm's length apart. Sansa caught the scent of myrrh clinging to her hair. The Queen's gaze swept Sansa's torn gown, the bruise blossoming at her collar. When she spoke, each syllable rang as measured iron. "You loved my son once, or claimed to. Even after Ned Stark's treason, we kept you alive for Joffrey's sake. And now?" Her voice cracked. She pressed fist to mouth, regained mastery. "Tell me, girl, did you kill my boy?" "Your Grace, I swear upon my father's memory." "Spare me your father." Venom dripped from the title. "Your father plotted to replace Joffrey with that bastard Renly. He died for his treachery. Do you now seek vengeance through our blood?" Sansa mustered the ghost of Winterfell's blizzards. "King Joffrey loathed me. He beat me, humiliated me, called my brother traitor. But I tell you truly, I did not poison him." Cersei's nails dug crescents in her palms. "Lies." She turned, pacing. "Pycelle names the potion strangler. He claims it entered through the last cup. Witnesses say you held the chalice. I served it, yes. But many hands touched it before. Cersei spun. Name them. Margaery Tyrell. Sir Loras. Lord Tyrell. The High Septon. Sir Balon Swan. Your Grace herself. Each name struck like a pebble against a glacier, insufficient to crack the queen's grief-hardened shell. Cersei stalked forward, seized Sansa's chin, forced her to meet blazing green. One truth remains. Of all Joffrey's enemies, only House Stark had reason for such spite. My son butchered your family, yes? Your wolf banner hung headless at the twins. How sweet your revenge now. Next to wine. Hot tears welled, unbidden. If revenge was my aim, why not sooner? I endured Joffrey's cruelty for moons. Cersei released her with a shove. Because you're a coward, and cowards wait for masks and celebrations to hide their daggers. She drew breath. Pledge your guilt, and I will grant the mercy of a swift end. Deny it, and I will peel truth from your flesh one strip at a time. Her voice tremored again. Pain, not mercy. Sansa sank to her knees. I am innocent. Cersei stared down, hands fisting in her skirts. At last, she called for guards. Take her to the black cells. Let darkness counsel her tongue. One all. The black cells. Even the air felt fettered. Here, stone corridors swallowed sound. Moisture dripped in rhythms older than empires. Her cell was smaller than a wardrobe, windowless, lampless. The door slammed, and night swallowed her wholly. She counted heartbeats to stay fear. Somewhere a man moaned. Madness, hunger, ghosts attending their own funeral dirge. Days, perhaps only hours, slipped by. Hunger gnawed, thirst flayed, hallucinations teased. Arya's face hovering like moonlight, Bran's laughter echoing in crumbling mortar. She whispered their names until voice wore to dust. At length, the door creaked. Torchlight knifed across her retinas. A hooded figure stepped within. Silent as breath, with drawn dagger he cut her bonds, drew her upright. Another man entered. Sir Ilyn Payne, the king's mute headsman, eyes flat as tarnished coins. Panic seized her. She recoiled. But the hooded man interposed. Steady, he murmured. The voice. She knew it. Petyr Baelish. He pushed back his hood. Shadows could not soften his sly smile. A black cell is no fit place for a flower of the north. Sansa swallowed. Lord Baelish, you were at the Vale. I returned upon news of the wedding. Fortunate timing, would you not agree? He surveyed the damp walls. Cersei's grief has blinded her. She sees enemies in every shadow. He tapped the torch, sending sparks dancing. But I, as ever, see opportunities. Ser Ilyn remained by the threshold, sword across arms. Littlefinger gestured, and the mute handed him a folded piece of parchment. Your release warrant, Baelish explained, signed by Lord Tywin himself. He wishes a fair trial, free of the Queen's excesses. Until then, you will be lodged in gentler quarters. Relief surged, but suspicion followed like a shadow. Why help me? Baelish touched his heart. Your mother was my dearest friend. I vowed to protect her children. His smile sharpened. Besides, the realm's balance teeters. A wise man places coin on multiple horses. He offered an arm. Too weak to stand alone, she accepted. They passed Sir Ilyn, whose lips twitched in semblance of grin. Upwards they climbed through spiraling stairs until she stumbled into a modest chamber. Narrow bed, wash basin, a shuttered arrow slit, admitting sliver of dawn light. Compared to the black cell, it felt as lavish as the Erie's highest halls. A serving girl brought broth and bread. Sansa devoured them, throat raw, but grateful. Baelish watched. Tomorrow, he said, the lords of the realm will convene a council to choose a Lord Protector until Tommen's coronation. Tywin seeks to consolidate authority swiftly. Cersei demands regicide charges laid before the court. She favors the Tyrell's guilt to weaken Highgarden, but Margaery's beauty shields her. Thus eyes fall again on you, and on my cunning nephew by marriage. Dad? Tyrion. Just so. Baelish's fingers toyed with an emerald brooch shaped like a mockingbird. You may find strange allies in dark times. I advise cultivating them. She wiped broth from her lip. Will they torture me again? Not if Lord Tywin prevails. He respects due process when it suits. Baelish leaned forward. But verdicts in royal courts hinge on more than facts. Testimony. Coinsney. Fear. Each a thread. Pull enough and truth unravels. Manitou? His meaning hovered. She shivered. He stood. Rest, my lady. Tomorrow you must appear composed. Remember, tears move some. Steel moves others. Learn which blade to wield. After he left, she slept fitfully. Dreams tangled. Her mother's face at the Riverlands. Tyrion offering wine. Joffrey choking. Danto's rotund silhouette urging flight. When she woke, sun stroked the arrow slit. Jen? The throne room buzzed like a hive. Lords in silks and maesters in gray. Knights polished to mirror gleam. High-born ladies dabbing at scented kerchiefs. Atop the Iron Throne sat Tommen, small hands gripping barbs. Lord Tywin stood sentinel beside him, lion of gold and patience. To the right, Queen Cersei glared, veiled in black jewels. Below, Grand Maester Pycelle attended with chains rattling. Sansa entered flanked by 2 white-cloaked Kingsguard. Sir Balon Swan and Sir Meryn Trant. Though manacles circled her wrists, Tywin had decreed no fetters on her ankles. She walked proud as a Stark might in a lion's den. Tyrion stood apart near the Tyrell delegation, his posture deceptively casual. He offered the smallest nod. A herald proclaimed charges. Pycelle droned evidence. Strangler herb, residue within chalice, witness claims of the suspect's handling of cup. Then Cersei herself addressed the hall. Voice a forged spear. She poured the last of the wine, the queen said. She alone bore cause. The slights to her house, the deaths of traitors Robb Stark and Catelyn. Lord Tywin raised a gauntleted hand. We shall hear the accused. They ushered her to a dais. Silence fell thick as honey. Did you poison King Joffrey? Tywin asked. Her voice, when it emerged, was Winterfell's steel cooled in icy pools. No, my lord. Tywin's golden eyes assessed. Were you aware of any plot? No. Cersei stepped forward. If innocence is truth, swear by the 7. I swear by the old gods and the new. She raised shackled hands. I loved Joffrey once. In the way a child loves stories. That story ended, but I bear no stain of his death. Murmurs slithered through the gallery. Margaery Tyrell exchanged whispers with her grandmother Olenna, whose fingers toyed with a velvet pouch stitched in rose thread. Observing them, Sansa felt a glimmer of insight. An old woman with cunning fingers, a jeweled hairnet. Her heart lurched. Could Olenna have plucked an amethyst from her net during Margaery's embrace? Could the Tyrell Queen of Thorns have seeded the strangler into Joffrey's cup? The thought struck like a comet. Devastating, brilliant, plausible. Yet the knowledge changed nothing now. To voice it without proof would brand her liar, desperate. So she sealed the revelation behind her teeth. Tywin signaled. Call next witness. Ser Dontos shuffled forth reeking of wine. He recounted the gift of a jeweled hairnet to Sansa Dabdir. Pycelle demanded to see it. Guards produced the net found among her confiscated possessions, now missing 3 amethysts. Gasps rippled. Pycelle raised a vial. Residue from these vacant sockets matches Strangler. Cersei's gaze bored into Sansa. Explain. Blood roared in her ears. She recalled Belish's words, tears or steel. She chose steel. Ser Dontos lied. He gave me a trinket, yes, but he kept the very jewels he claims to have gifted. He is drunk, paid to smear my name. Dontos staggered. False. My sweet lady, Tywin banged the pommel of his sword. Enough. We will deliberate. The court recessed. Sansa stood in a guarded alcove, joints stiff. Tyrion approached. "They wish a scapegoat," he murmured. "Soon Tywin will weigh which lamb bleats loudest. If Sir Dantos can be broken, his tale may unravel." "He will never withstand torture," she said. "No. But truth like ale may spill when cast cracks." Tyrion's eyes glittered. "There may be another route. Bronn shadows Sir Dantos even now. In night flees, his testimony wavers. Merci. You would help me escape blame?" She struggled for the right words. "Why?" He shrugged. "I have use for one ally not sworn to Tywin or Cersei." Before she could probe, a trumpet blared. Court reconvened. Tywin addressed the hall. "The council finds insufficient proof for a death sentence. Lady Sansa Stark will remain in guarded custody until further inquiry. Sir Dantos Hollard shall face questioning under truth potion." He ignored Cersei's hiss. "Let it be known. Justice will proceed without haste or whim." Relief coursed through Sansa's veins, ice thawing to life. Tyrion's gaze met hers, a flare of triumph, tempered by warning. Allies born of survival, not trust. And they had kind. That evening, Baelish slipped into her chamber unannounced. Lantern glow cast daggered shadows across murals of Targaryen kings. "Your respite is brittle," he said. "Dantos will sing whichever tune the torturers choose, and Cersei holds the baton. What choice have I?" He stepped closer. "Sail with me tonight. My ship waits at Breaker's docks, holds manned, sails ready. I can spirit you to the Fingers, the Vale, or farther, Bravos, Pentos. Tyrion may strive to protect you, but politics devours even clever dwarfs. Freedom lies beyond these walls." Memchat. Her pulse fluttered. "If I flee, I look guilty." "You already look guilty to those who matter." His breath brushed her ear. "Take the leap. Live." She recalled the cold certainty of Joffrey's death. The emptiness left behind. In that void, a new resolve kindled. "Live, yes, but not as pawn. As player." "I will go," she said, surprising herself with serenity. "On one condition." Baelish's brow arched. "Name it." "My escape must be my own design. No brand of yours upon it." He laughed softly. "Clever wolf. Very well. I shall provide the door you choose when to step through." He produced a small package wrapped in waxed cloth, pressing it to her palm. A key to the postern gate, and a map of tunnels. Tonight, during Moon's third rise, the guards change. Opportunity knocks but thrice. "Nen? Why I trust I won't confess your involvement. Because you crave agency more than vengeance. And because secrets keep us bound." He kissed her knuckles. "Until we meet again, Lady Stark." After he vanished, Sansa unwrapped the parcel. A tarnished iron key, a parchment scratched thin with lines and notations. Beneath the key lay a tiny mirror of polished bronze. When she lifted it, the candle's flame fractured into sparks. She saw her face, hollow-cheeked, eyes rimmed red, and beneath it something new, ironed. "Witty!" Night descended wearing clouds like ragged cloaks. The Red Keep slumbered fitfully. Guards' lanterns bobbed along ramparts. In her borrowed chamber, Sansa donned a plain servant's tunic and breeches filched from a laundry basket. She bound her copper hair beneath a hood, slid the key into her sleeve, and waited. At the third hour past moonrise, she eased her door ajar. The corridor slept beneath guttering torches. She padded barefoot, heart pounding loud enough to summon guards. At a junction, she ducked into a servant's stair, descending until dust choked the air. Tunnels branched like roots. By candlestub, she followed Baelish's map. Left at the Weeping Stone, right where the wall bore a stark direwolf scratched by some forgotten hand. Twice she nearly blundered into patrolling guards. Each time she flattened into shadows, breath locked. Ahead the passage broadened, ending at a low wooden door. The key slid home, turned with a groan. Beyond lay the night air, salted by the narrow sea. She slipped through, closing it softly. The postern emerged atop a narrow path along the cliff's base. Below, waves chewed black rocks. A lantern flickered to the south, Baelish's men perhaps. To the north, King's Landing's harbor lights glittered. Her choice loomed, monstrous as the sea's Maudachwa. Follow Littlefinger, or vanish on her own into the labyrinth of city and fate. Trust no savior, forge her own legend. She found her feet moving north. Past dark warehouses, through alleys rank with fish guts, to the mud gate. Here offal carts waited midnight discard. Beggars huddled under archways. She blended among them until a merchant's barge drifted from a dock. Crew drunk with stolen festival wine. She offered coins scavenged from Baelish's parcel, a purse heavy with silver stags. Take me to Maidenpool, she lied. My family is ill. They shrugged. Silver weighed more than questions. She climbed aboard. Sails unfurled, billowing under a fickle breeze. King's Landing receded, torchlit towers shrinking into flickering memories. On deck, she closed her eyes. Joffrey's death still shimmered like heat haze. The fall of a tyrant, the spark of upheaval. She had not planned the deed. Yet somehow her choices had nudged fate along its blade's edge. She would carry that weight always. Stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses. Sansa Stark inhaled the brine of open water and felt the chains about her spirit loosen. Ahead sprawled war, intrigue, heartbreak unknown. But also paths uncharted, where wolves might learn new songs. Her story, once penned by others, now lay raw as fresh parchment. She anchored resolve in a single vow. She would write it herself, in ink of steel and winter's fire. And when the world read those pages, it would remember the girl who had once been caged and had shattered those bars with nothing but will. The barge creaked, prow cutting moonlit ripples. Somewhere below deck, gulls screeched among cargo nets. Sansa leaned against the railing, letting wind whip hair free of its scarf. Copper strands streaming like banners of a house reborn. Winterfell, she whispered to the cold. Not a lament, but a promise. Behind her, the city burned with new rumors. Ahead, the sea echoed with possibility. And beneath the darkened sky, the lone wolf set her course toward destiny. Beneath no sigil but her own. Ka. The barge knifed eastward through the black water, its single-patched sail, bellied by a wind that carried the wet salt smell of open sea and the distant tang of river mud. Lanterns swung from both masts. Tiny, trembling suns that painted the deck in amber crescents. Yet beyond their glow the night remained a vast, unsympathetic void. Sansa stood at the rail with arms folded against the chill, cloak snapping behind her. For the first time since childhood, no watchful maid or ironclad guard hovered at her shoulder. The empty space felt perilous and exhilarating by turns. Each creak of timber was a reminder that she had slipped from the lanes of courtly certainty into some wilder, trackless country. Ahead, only the stars confirmed orientation, and they offered neither counsel nor comfort. The vessel's master was a burly riverman named Lothar Pike, a man whose scar-stitched brow suggested knife fights and smugglers' coves. Yet his voice held an unexpected gentleness when he addressed her. "Storm coming," he said now, nodding toward the horizon where clouds gathered like bruises. "But we'll hold east of the swells if the wind keeps. Might reach Maidenpool by dawn." "Mendenau." She nodded gratitude and turned her gaze forward, watching the subtle shift of water under moonlight. Even wrapped in plain wool, the cold bit deep, and fatigue weighted her eyelids. But inside, some anxious coal burned too hot for sleep. She replayed the past days. The poisoned cup, the convulsing king, the queen's rage, the tightened noose around her neck, and the final flight through tunnels slick with rotting leaves. It left her dizzy, as though she had crossed seasons in a heartbeat, and now she floated between realms, no longer a maiden of Winterfell, not yet a fugitive queen of her own making, just a girl who had helped fate topple a cruel boy king and was awaiting reckoning, both from the world and from herself. Wind rose and snapped her hood loose. A spray of brine kissed her cheeks, bringing tears she hastily wiped away. Somewhere aft, sailors began a low chant to keep rhythm as they trimmed line. The song was half dirge, half lullaby, in a dialect she did not know. Part of her longed to join them, to vanish among their unknown names and shared tasks. But caution counseled silence. She had shown Lothar silver to secure passage, but silver never bought trust. Should he harbor Lannister's sympathies, or worse, sell her name to some passing patrol, her freedom would dissolve like foam. So she kept to the rail, small and unmoving, a shadow mistaken for a deck fixture. Hours crawled. Twice she nodded, catching herself before her knees gave, and forced wakefulness with pinches to her palm. The second time, Lothar reappeared with a dented tin cup sloshing thin ale. "Warm your belly," he urged. "Your teeth are rattling." She accepted, drank, felt liquid heat bloom. He lingered, squinting. "You're running from something ugly, that's plain. Ugly things have long memories. Make certain you've a plan beyond Maidenpool." "I do," she lied, voice steady. The truth was nebulous. Reach the Vale perhaps, find a ship north, plead safe conduct from some lordlier house still loyal to Stark blood. But each step required coin and contacts, and those were dwindling. For all her midnight plotting among stone walls, she had not envisioned crossing the narrow channels of power alone, armed with nothing but wits dulled by hunger. "Good," Lothar replied. "Ugly things eat girls without plans." He tipped his cap, retreated to the helm. She watched him go, gripping the cup until knuckles white-capped like waves. Somewhere below decks a hatch slammed, echoing across the hull like a heartbeat. Stars blurred as the clouds swallowed them. When first drops fell, cold darts that stung her brow, she retreated beneath the quarterdeck awning. Sailcloth overhead thrummed, while wind rose to a roar. Rain swept sideways, drenching lines, flattening lantern flames until they guttered, extinguished. Darkness closed. The storm's first true slap came as a wall of water cresting over starboard, slamming the hull so hard she staggered. Smothered curses from crew followed, then the quick hammer of feet across planks as they shortened sail. Thunder cracked, a whip snap that rattled teeth. Sansa clung to a stanchion, drenched, hair plastered across cheeks. Another wave heaved, slewing the barge sideways. Ropes shrieked, wood groaned. Someone yelled for buckets. Bilge rising, another voice shouted about ballast shifting. In that chaos she felt strangely calm, as though some inner self had stepped forward while fear cowered behind. She began to move, helping where she could, lashing a flailing crate, handing line to a sailor whose eyes widened at the sight of her, but who gripped the rope all the same. Salt burned her throat, but she kept at it, battered yet upright. Hours, or minutes, blurred. At last, the gale's fury waned, clouds thinned to gauze, and first gray hints of dawn crept along the eastern rim. When quiet settled, broken only by the slap of exhausted sails, Lothar approached. "Weta tried to crack us like an egg," he muttered, rubbing his beard. "But you held quick. Not many fine-skinned maidens would." He studied her, curious. "I'm a Stark," she nearly said, but swallowed the boast. Instead, "I've ridden out a siege on Blackwater Bay and the fall of Winterfell. Rain is a gentle teacher compared to fire and betrayal." He grunted agreement. "Maidenpool's light soon." He pointed toward distant shoreline where flickers glimmered like far embers. "We make port, unload hides and ironwork. You'll disembark with the wagons. After that, 7 watch you." Dawn-colored water pewter and then rose-petal pink. As light grew, Sansa saw gulls circling yawning cliffs, their cries raw against morning hush. Half-ruined fortifications crowned one bluff. Scars of war come south. Even in calm the realm bled. Yet the sight of land filled her with a cautious hope. Whatever trials awaited ashore, they would at least be trials she chose. The barge nosed into Maidenpool's harbor by mid-morning. Weathered wharves leaned into the tide, fishermen's huts clustered like barnacles. Roosters crowed. Shallow draft allowed them to tie up beside a rickety pier where memory of war still lingered in charred pilings. Lothar's men flung mooring lines, catching rings. Sansa waited as crates were winched. Barrels rolled onto planks, slick with algae. When the final cargo thudded down, she hefted her small bundle, cloak, coin purse, The map Baelish had given, a change of rough-spun dress, and followed a steep door across gangplank to land that felt oddly unsteady beneath her soles. She turned to thank Lothar. He nodded once, already barking orders. Then he tossed something. A small iron knife, simple hilt wrapped in salt-stiff cord. She caught it clumsily. "Keep it hidden," he said. "Ugly things." He gave a half-smile, then vanished among coiled rope. Sansa tucked the blade under her belt, pulled hood low, and merged with dockside bustle. Odors assaulted. Brine, tar, fish guts, horse dung, yeast from nearby bakeries. She moved with purposeful calm, avoiding eye contact, only half hearing hawkers' cries for cockles and dried eels. At a stall, she purchased heel of brown bread still warm, devoured half in greedy bites. The road from harbor climbed a gentle hill, lined with mossy stone houses, stabbed by new timber repairs. Maidenpool had been sacked by Lannister and Northmen, both during the war years. Char and plaster told layered stories. Atop the rise, the town square spread like a rough quilt, market tents bright beneath morning sun. A fountain carved as a leaping carp gurgled despite a missing fin. She paused, drinking in detail, measuring risk. No gold cloaks visible, no Lannister banners. Local lordship belonged to House Mouton, historically Targaryen loyal. But now, whichever way wind blew, she must pass quickly. First, she secured lodgings. A modest inn named the Quill and Tankard, its sign a feather dipping toward frothing mug. The proprietress, a stout woman with a motherly scowl, offered a tiny garret for 2 coppers and included a wash basin. Sansa paid 4 to forestall questions and retreated upstairs. There she peeled off damp clothes, scrubbed skin raw, braided hair tight, and bound it under a kerchief. She examined herself in crack-flecked mirror, eyes sunken yet alert, jaw firmer than she remembered. The girl who left King's Landing seemed a ghost now. She slept then, a thief of daylight, until dusk turned the garret window lavender. Hunger prodded her awake. Downstairs, common room boomed with trade peddlers toasting new prospects. She settled in a corner to spoon stew of rabbit and barley, eavesdropping. Discussion circled around the purple death of King Joffrey and the witch-wolf girl who fled. Some spoke of price on her head, 10,000 gold dragons, dead or alive. Sansa's spoon froze mid-air. Another voice claimed, the bounty came directly from Queen Regent Cersei, but Lord Tywin insisted capture be gentle lest the hostage prove bargaining chip. Rumors sprouted like mushrooms in damp cellars. She ate quietly, storing details for later. Then a pair of sellswords entered, brown mail rusted at the joins. They scanned the room like cats sniffing caged birds. One bore a rolled parchment bearing the royal seal. His companion pinned to notice board a charcoal sketch of a young woman, poorly rendered, yet copper hair and high cheekbones enough to prickle Sansa's neck. She rose, paid, slipped out before they turned. Night air tasted of smoke and apple peel. Street lamps guttered. She pressed into shadowed alley, breathing through panic. The bounty would draw hunters across the realm. Baelish's boat might have offered more secrecy, but secrets wielded by Baelish came with strings tighter than shackles. Freedom demanded risk. She needed allies. Names flickered. House Mouton? They held little sway. The Brotherhood without banners roamed riverlands, rumored to champion common folk, but they too grew ruthless. Farther north lay River Run's ruined shell. Rumors said Brynden Tully held fast, yet reaching him meant traversing war-torn roads teeming with broken men. Eastward across bay, the Vale promised Aunt Lysa, though Baelish's claws entangled her. Where else? The Wall held Jon, if still alive, but the realm between teemed with Frey and Bolton wolves. She pressed palm to hidden dagger. Decision could not be postponed. Choose path by dawn. For now she sought refuge beyond the inn. Low town walls offered vantage. She climbed crumbling parapet overlooking harbor. Moon silvered the sea. Torches on piers dotted black water. Below, she glimpsed a sleek caravel unfurling a mockingbird banner. Baelish's sigil. He had found port quickly. Fear warred with relief. Maybe he meant to coax rather than seize. She crouched until ship's lanterns winked out behind storehouses. Shivering, she returned to garret, bolting door. Sleep eluded. Whispers of approaching footsteps haunted floorboards. She rose twice to check window latch, thrice to reposition trap dagger. Sometime before dawn, exhaustion claimed her. And then, far to the south, King's Landing simmered. In the Tower of the Hand, Tyrion Lannister paced marble floor veined like dried blood. Varys stood by shuttered window, powdery fingers steepled. On a nearby chair, Shay sat silent, eyes large. She listened, though the conversation's jagged edges hovered beyond her language's reach. Serdontos is dead, Varys reported. Voice silk over steel. Found floating near the mudgate. Arrow through throat. Some say footpads. I suspect more deliberate archery. Benyao, Tyrion cursed. Baelish's work? Or the Queen's? Said Varys. Either way, his testimony against Lady Sansa evaporates. Tyrion rubbed his brow. My father will smell conspiracy. He'll turn over every dung heap. And Cersei, gods, she thirsts for vengeance. And you, my lord. I thirst for survival. He halted before Shay, touching her shoulder. For those I care about. Concern flickered in Varys' eye at this indiscretion. Tyrion exhaled. If father cannot hang Sansa, he may settle for me. I poured the wine. Now. Prince Oberyn has arrived, Varys offered, as though reciting menu of poisons. The Red Viper favors justice laced with venom. He might champion you in trial by combat. Against Sir Gregor, my brother's pet beast? Tyrion snorted. I trust Oberyn's prowess, but rely not on any Dornish oath. His mind sketched labyrinths of possibilities. None safe. Varys produced a scroll. A raven from Maidenpool. A ship under Baelish's banner docked this morn. I surmise our Lady Stark slipped net. He paused. If she reached Baelish, he'll groom her as pawn against the Lannisters. If she eluded him, she roams Riverlands unguarded. Nibni more. Tyrion weighted options. Send quiet men north. Do not seize her, watch only. If she is free, I would see her reach safety. A generous gamble. She is not our enemy, Tyrion said, gaze hardening. And guilt clings heavier when the innocent suffer. See to it. The spider bowed. Yamnakawa. Outside Maidenpool, dwindling light, painted fields ochre. Sansa left by postern gate at sunrise, traveling with a ragtag freight caravan heading west toward Duskendale. She posed as a scribe's apprentice, ink stains on fingers courtesy of walnut dye purchased at apothecary, and kept hood low. The scribe, Master Collio, was a talkative sip of a man with parchment-thin beard who cared little who listened so long as someone did. He chattered about toll roads and tax ledgers, entirely oblivious to bounty posters curling on village boards. She feigned interest, committing names of petty lords to memory. Roads proved pocked by war. Burned farmsteads, orchards cut down for firewood. Graves marked by crude sticks. Once they passed gallows where 3 corpses swayed. Stenciled placards read, Outlaw. Hard-riding Frey patrols occasionally thundered by, banners snapping. Each time Sansa's heart hammered until distance swallowed hoofbeats. On the 3rd day, they reached a crossroads inn called the Badger's Rest. Collio parted ways, heading south for Rosby, leaving her with 2 choices. Continue west through Duskendale to reach Crackclaw Point's forests, then skiff across Bay to Vale, or turn north along Triton's east bank toward River Run. She studied her dwindling coins. Passage across Bay would cost plenty, and Vale entry remained uncertain. Northward journey risked Bolton forces. Yet her heart tugged that way, the stark pull of home. She slept little that night, turning plan like glass prism. Dawn's first blush found her seated by inn hearth, bread crust in hand. Low voices drifted from corner table, where 2 hedge knights argued over map. One jabbed at forest near Saltpans, naming it Brotherhood Camp. The other spat that bounty for Kingslayer's killer doubled if they seized the she-wolf Sansa. She froze, then forced calm. If Brotherhood lingered near Saltpans, maybe they would shelter a Stark. She rose, settled her board and slipped outside into crisp morning. Horses steamed in paddock. She found a bay mare for hire. Owner demanded 8 silver stags. Steep, but walking left her vulnerable. She paid, cinched borrowed saddle, and mounted. Hooves drummed eastward. Forest swallowed road by afternoon. Pines towered, needles carpeting earth. Filter of green light cooled sun's glare. Birdsong fluttered overhead. Squirrels skittered. Each rustle raised prickles. Friend or foe? She rode cautious, singing softly to herself when silence grew too thick. Snatches of northern lullabies about snow wolves guarding sleeping children. Memories warmed her. Near dusk, she spied smoke threading treetops. Caution drew her off path. She tethered mare among saplings, crept ahead. A clearing unfolded where half-dozen men in patchwork mail lounged by fire, roasting hare. Their surcoats bore faded twin towers of House Frey, but gear looked scavenged. Nearby, a bound prisoner knelt, head drooping. Sansa crouched behind fallen log, heart hammering. Frey scavengers. She should retreat. Then the prisoner lifted face enough for torchlight. A young girl, maybe 12, cheeks streaked with tears. Sansa's breath caught. Memories of Arya flashed. Her little sister lost somewhere in this war-ripped world. One Frey joked about ransom. Another countered she'd fetch more. At Maidenpool's brothel, laughter erupted. Sansa's fists clenched. She could turn away. Safety first, or she could intervene at risk of life. She weighed options with cold clarity. She possessed a knife, surprise, and perhaps moral authority if she claimed Stark name before men sworn to Bolton allies. Yet numbers favored them. Better to seek help. Retreating to Mare, she mounted and galloped deeper woods, mind racing. Who near might challenge Freys? Rumor said Brotherhood roamed these parts. Their leader, the Lightning Lord, was said to fight for smallfolk. She needed to summon them somehow. She rode until lungs burned, then slowed. Dusk deepened. Night threatened. She dismounted, tethered horse, and began searching for signs. Carved tree marks, hidden fires. At length, distant song reached her ears, a low chorus echoing through trunks. She followed, stepping soft. Amp emerged around ruined sept. Tattered banners depicting a skull beneath flaming sword. Men warming stew paused as she stepped into glow. Bowstrings shifted. She raised hands. My name is S. She caught herself. Elaine, she said, using alias Baelish once proposed. But my blood is Stark. I seek Lord Beric. Murmurs. A tall archer with patch over eye approached. Why claim Stark, he asked. Because Frey curs hold a child captive 2 miles west. Your creed is to shield the weak, is it not? Help me free her. The man studied her. You alone against Freys? She nodded. They'll likely sell her to flesh markets in Maidenpool. You have power to stop it. Who is she to you? No one. But injustice binds us all. She met his gaze unflinching. Something in her tone, the iron of Winterfell, the quiet fury, stirred them. Men exchanged looks. Minutes later, 6 riders saddled, torches quenched. The archer, named Angui, guided her back. At clearing edge they dismounted. Sansa crouched behind bush while Brotherhood advanced like phantoms. What followed unfolded quick. Arrow whisper. Sentry collapse. Figures slipping among trees. Swords flashing red in firelight. Freys scrambled. One died before drawing blade, another fled into darkness, leaving boots. Angui cut bonds. The child sobbed. When silence drowned struggle, Sansa stepped forward. The rescued girl flung arms around her. She stiffened, then embraced gently. Eyes glittered around her, the Brotherhood men gauging their unexpected benefactor. Who truly are you? Angui asked. She weighed truth. I am Sansa Stark, she whispered. Angui's one eye widened. A weighty name, bounty weighty as well. She expected greed. Instead, he touched brow in salute. Your father treated small folk fair when he rode south with King Robert. A debt remains. Relief loosened her spine. Take us to your lord. I have offers to make. By fire inside ruined sept, Sansa met Beric Dondarrion. half his face creased by scars, eye blazing with feverish light. Thoros of Myr poured mulled wine. They listened as she outlined flight, Joffrey's death, her need for safe travel north. "We ride for the Trident soon," Beric said after reflection. "Plenty holdfasts need justice there. We could escort you part way." Thoros raised brow. "Lannister gold for her head will weigh heavy on purses of poor farmers we pass." Beric's mouth curved sad. "The poor always pay war's costs. But we fought for realm's good, not its tyrants." He turned to Sansa. "Travel with us if you dare ruin's company. We move under night, strike at oppressors of common folk. Not safe road." "I will ride," she said. "I trust men who guard children without promise of coin." So it was decided. The rescued girl, Elise, daughter of a blacksmith slain by raiders, latched onto Sansa as though to older sister. That night, while others snored, Elise confided she once heard tales of Winterfells, endless summer snows, and dire wolf pups. Sansa spoke softly of those days, letting memory warm both hearts. Gemete. Meanwhile, the Vale's narrow mountain passes echoed with hoofbeats. Petyr Baelish rode toward the bloody gate, face half shadowed by hood, thoughts coiled like vipers. His men had scoured Maidenpool to no avail. Sansa vanished. He cursed her stubborn northern streak, even as some part of him admired it. She would survive, a Stark trait, and when she did, she'd owe him nothing. That unsettled him more than failure. He composed letters en route. One to Lysa, assuring her of imminent arrival with precious ward. Another to Cersei, feigning sympathy and pledging to locate fugitive. Lies overlapped like blades in sheath. Yet for the first time, his intricate net missed a thread. He pictured her riding through twilight, hair in wind, free. A sour taste grew. He spat dust. Kinentimdi. In King's Landing, Tywin Lannister studied dispatches. Frey outriders reported skirmish near salt pans, casualties, mention of Brotherhood wielding lightning banners, and rumor Lady Stark seen among them. He crushed parchment in fist, eyes narrowing. "Send Ser Gregor north," he ordered. "Let the riverlands burn until she is dragged before me." When Maester Pycelle hesitated, Tywin rose, cloak swirling like blood. "The realm will learn obedience through terror, if loyalty cannot be bought." Gaterwine. Thus days turned. Sansa rode beneath tree-arched roads, learning Brotherhood's ways. How to vanish smoke when striking garrison, how to snare coney, where to find clean water by reading Willow's Lean. She listened to songs of Aralora from Thoros and countered with northern hearth tales. Both laughed at each other's gods yet found comfort in shared fire. Beric sparred nightly despite wound that never fully healed. He taught her to parry with light sword, praising quick wrists. Yet shadows stalked. One midnight horizon glowed orange. Distant village torched by Gregor Clegane, rumor said. Refugees poured into forest. Starving mothers, limping men. Brotherhood food dwindled. Beric spoke of heading deeper riverlands to rally peasants, but Gregor's heavy cavalry outmatched. Spiraling fate closed. On 10th day, scouts reported Lannister column moving towards Stonehenge. Beric resolved ambush to free captives. Sansa argued they must avoid direct clash, Brotherhood too few. But hunger for righteous strike burned. She could only watch. The clash unfolded at dusk, near Burned Mill. Brotherhood arrows felled outriders, then Gregor's men countercharged, iron-tied. Sansa and Elise crouched behind fallen oak, clutching each other as screams shredded twilight. She glimpsed Beric, flaming sword ablaze, dueling knight in gilded helm. Sparks flew. Then huge shadow crashed through melee. Gregor himself, greatsword cleaving Beric's shield like crate wood. Flames sputtered, Beric reeled. Thoros yelled prayer, but Gregor's mailed fist slammed torchbearer, sending priest sprawling. Panic seized Sansa. Without thinking, she sprinted, seized fallen bough, notched arrow though hands shook. She drew, aimed for gap in Gregor's armpit. Memory of Septim Ordain's lessons and posture flickered. She loosed. Time slowed. Arrow hissed, struck chain. Gregor roared, turning monstrous head toward her. In next instant, Angoy tackled her, dragging behind log as horse thundered by. Dust-choked lungs. When confusion cleared, Lannisters withdrew, leaving scorched ground and bodies. Beric lay motionless, sword quenched. Thoros stumbled to him, hands glowing with fervent prayer. Sansa knelt, tears mixing with grime. Around them, survivors wove tourniquets, dragged, wounded. The battle earned scant victory. Half captives freed, half taken. Thoros's chanting rose, crescendoed, fell silent. Beric's chest jerked. Breath returned shallow. His eye flickered open. Again, he rasped. Half smile. Thoros sagged. Night claimed forest as pyres were built. At one fire, Sansa cleaned her arrow-scored hands. Angui approached. Foolish to shoot at the mountain, he said, but his tone warm. Yet brave. Could have saved Lord Beric that moment. He glanced at her, respect glinting. I could not stand idle, she murmured. I've watched monsters win too long. Gal? By moon's third rise, they reached Saltmarsh River crossing. Brotherhood planned to split, small units to harry supply lines while wounded headed to secret caves. Sansa faced choice again. Continue with them or strike north alone across Trident's Fords toward the Twins, then White Harbor. She considered allies, fragile among hard men, and her own hungering heart for snow and pines. She approached Beric, who sat by flickering coals, chest bandaged. I must journey home, she said. My brother's bannermen may yet rally if I live. North is clawed by Boltons and Freys, he warned. I have faith. She glanced at Alice, asleep under blanket, and responsibility. Beric removed a small brooch from pouch, a silver lightning bolt. Take this. Show to any Brotherhood cell. They'll aid. He closed her fingers around it. The realm needs new songs. Perhaps yours will ring truer than ours someday. Dawn found her mounted once more, Alice behind, saddle packs filled with bread and dried boar courtesy of Thoros. Angui rode escort until midday, teaching her whistle signals, then veered west on mission. She continued north along King's Road remnants, heart pounding with both dread and purpose. Wow. In White Harbor, Lord Wyman Manderley stood upon crenellated balcony, fat hands folded over fur cloak. He listened to Commander's report. Ravens from south speak of dire wolf maiden stirring rebellion. His small eyes brightened. A Stark alive. His booming laugh echoed. Fetch parchment. The north remembers. Quills scratched. And now, by late moon of harvest, Sansa's path would cross with Manderley scouts. One of many forks leading to looming campaign against Bolton Frey occupation. Before that, she would brave river fords patrolled by mercenaries, barter half her coin for passage through ragged camps, witness small miracles, a farmer who hid them in hay wagon, an old septon who mended Eliza's fever with willow bark, a frozen lake reflecting aurora when first snows dusted ground, reminding her of Winterfell's Godswood Pool. Each new dawn carved away the sheltered girl who loved lemon cakes, revealing sinew and bone of woman grown from exile and blood. She practiced with dagger nightly, teaching Elise to strike pommel to wrist of would-be grabber. She studied maps scorched onto leather scraps, reading rivers like veins of the land. She learned to speak less, observe more, to gauge threat in tremor of voice or lay of campfire smoke. Word traveled too, whispers of the wolf maiden rallying free folk, of monstrous mountain hunting her, of Imp's secret envoy shielding her path. Legends inflated, but Colonel remained. A survivor, forging destiny. She let rumor run. It blazed trails of hope. In the ruins of Harrenhal's melted towers, Queen Regent Cersei read latest Raven with a growl. The Brotherhood had slipped again, the mountain injured, northern houses stirring. Fires crackled in hearth, yet could not warm her rage. She hurled goblet against wall. Red wine bled down stone like sacrament. Find her, she screamed at Qyburn hovering in doorway. Flay every peasant if need be. Qyburn bowed, eerie calm. Pain reveals much, your grace. And crows always circle battlefields. Nenadems. Gimdal Walwada. One frost-laced morning near Maiden's Ford, Sansa knelt at riverside, washing road dust from face. Reflection rippled. The girl looking back bore scar across chin from flying splinter, hair darker with soil, eyes older. Yet within their depths, a blue winter sky remained, unmarred. She smiled faint, surprising herself. Stand tall, the sky seemed to say. Wolves run farther together. Elise approached with sticks for fire. Where next? She asked, trusting. Sansa rose. North. Her bones answered, yet aloud she said, Toward hope? She packed damp braid beneath hood, slung satchel, checked dagger's edge. Then they mounted. Hooves struck frozen earth, sending echoes down forest aisles that rang like drums of war. And somewhere unseen, ravens winged to Winterfell's ragged ramparts, bearing tidings the North had waited for. A Stark comes home. And miles away, Jon Snow stood atop Frostfang Lookout, cloak snapping in sub-zero wind, eyes scanning southern horizon. When Black Messenger Crow perched on gauntlet and cawed, he stroked its feathers, unbound small scroll. Words within tightened his throat, set heart thunderous. He looked to Tormund Giantsbane beside him. Prepare riders, Jon said quietly. A song of winter begins anew. Tormund grinned, teeth white in red beard. About bloody time. And day. Night deepened. Sky crackled with distant lightning that cast the world in stark brief relief. Trees skeletal, rode a frozen serpent, two riders dwarfed by wilderness yet alive with purpose. Sansa urged her mare onward, pulse matching hoofbeat. Each beat whispered vow. Joffrey's ghost may haunt palaces. Cersei's wrath may scour valleys. Baelish's schemes may twist like ivy. But the North remembers, and she would remind it what a true wolf looked like. Unyielding, fierce, forged by storm and blood yet guided by quiet strength her father once carried. In the hush between thunderclaps, she swore another oath, this time to herself. She would not merely survive the game. She would claim it, shape it, ensure it could never again devour innocence unchecked. The road stretched on, but for the first time distance felt like promise rather than punishment. Above, fresh snowflakes spiraled in lantern glow. Soft petals from a sky-grown weirwood, blessing her return. She opened gloved hand, caught one crystal on palm, watched it melt into warmth, and spurred her horse toward dawn.